So I thought I'd make this video a little bit of a check-in about what I've learned about myself so far doing this challenge and reflecting on, what it's taught me so far. This might be a shorter one. I thought it'd be interesting nonetheless because of the personal insights that would be relevant to share with you in a world where we don't really like discomfort, but need it in order to grow. So that's what the topic of this video is about. Discomfort and how showing up can reveal to us the hidden insecurities and layers that we may not be willing to look at consciously. And I come back to my why and why I'm doing this. And even though I may be reflecting about my own psychology and my own life and my life experiences, it's for a greater purpose to share them with you and to help you realize that you're not alone in your own struggles in your life and your own hang-ups in your own psychology, because we all have them. And it's just, are you going to continue to let those insecurities or hang-ups in your psychology keep you where you are? And I've just made a commitment to myself that I'm no longer willing to have them keep me at a certain level. And if that means facing terror, fictitious terror that has been made up in my mind because of these fears, wanting to protect me or to keep me at a certain level of consciousness, then I'll be it. I can experience discomfort. And I think, it made me think about collectively when I think about us wanting to avoid discomfort. Probably because historically we've just experienced so much trauma, and it's compounding on itself, one world event after another, one catastrophe after another, elite abuse, perpetual elite abuse of the system, of power, and not to mention our own personal life stories that we have lived up until this point. It's just, we get exhausted and we just bury our heads in the sand and keep on moving. Or not. Just can we take a vacation for a few decades or something? It's exhausting to be alive sometimes, really, truly, and to be doing the work. But I have found the more that I attune to my spiritual self, it reignites this creativity that I would otherwise feel lost without, honestly, because the way that the world is designed and the way that my life has been set up, I can easily be a part of a cog in a machine, but I have always taken the road less traveled and have sacrificed a lot of worldly comforts in order to follow the path that was true to me. And sometimes a path that feels true to us is actually going down these side roads that these side roads that are going deeper into our traumas and revealing more of the things that are hidden in our psychology, and for us to continue on, hopefully with more understanding and wisdom, not just of ourselves, but the nature of life in general, and realizing this world is a reflection of our own internal states. And I think for me that was a mind bender. I really couldn't totally grasp or understand it, at least with my linear mind. I couldn't fully grasp that. You would hear that wisdom, that universal wisdom, throughout a lot of spiritual modes of thinking. But it wasn't until I found my current, spiritual teaching of the Ascended Masters that things started to really accelerate beyond anything that I had experienced before. I've gone through a lot of different spiritual teachings throughout my life. But this, studying the Ascended Master teachings through the dispensation of Kim Michaels, which I've mentioned, I've had him on my channel several times at this point. It's just been profound. And I think I really drive with it because at the heart of it, it's a psychologically focused teaching. There's a lot of esoteric wisdom. There's a lot of, things in there, but it's not so abstract and complex, at least. I think the heart of it, it's definitely not confusing or abstract to me, but again, it's in the eyes of the beholder. It's through whichever lens that you're looking at it through is how it will come back to you as. And I just find it, when I'm studying the teachings, I find it to be kind of like a breath of fresh air. And so I just wanted to share a little bit about, my experience and how deeply uncomfortable it has been in moments to share so publicly, and why I have, as time has gone on, dabbled less and less with it, because what's left of the unresolved psychology can be quite tender, even though I know so much of what I struggle with internally is so superficial at this point, because I can see beyond it, even though it hits very deeply sometimes, or it has come from something that was such a deep trauma. I see the unreality of it all, and I know who I am at the core of my being, and it's not just a human being, it's a spiritual being having a human experience. And so with that, I have a deeper understanding of why my life weaved itself the way that it did. I have this firm belief, even way before I found the Ascended Master teachings and this current rendition, this level of consciousness of understanding. I have always known that I chose this lifetime before I came here. I knew nothing was accidental in that way, the hard lessons that I would have to learn and go through, even though in the time when I'm going through it, it definitely doesn't seem like something I would want. But from a higher place, from a more objective place, of course, it would be this way. And I have always been a very deeply spiritual person, and I just always have had that awareness, and I always was connected to beings beyond me. I just didn't know that that's what we called them, which was Ascended Masters. I've always had a connection to them for as long as I can remember. I've always known that I was connected to these beings. And it's just funny how life weaves itself. It's pretty spectacular, really. And it feels like, any sense of loneliness or feelings of abandonment that I've ever felt, it just kind of gets washed away whenever I step into this and remember and come home to this deep remembrance of who and what I am and where I come from. And it's like nothing can take that away from me, except me and my awareness. And I think once you see something, it's really hard to unsee it. And I believe I came here to have an experience, to learn some valuable lessons, to raise my consciousness, because I think Earth is a particularly challenging planet to be on. It's an unnatural one. And I think that when it comes time for me to leave my body and to ascend from this earth, I will have a lot to offer the ascended beings, and this kind of like a database of uploading my consciousness into the experience of the other beings out there in the universe that will be so grateful to learn from all of us, who have done the treacherous journey, which is to go down to such a dense dense, low planet like planet Earth, and to play our part in raising up the collective consciousness. Because at the core of it, I believe that's why we're here. Yes, it's our own individual plan that we choose and the reasons why, but ultimately everything is just an experience. And this challenge is just an experience. Even if I often find myself like, gosh, should I private that video? Why did I say that? Blah, blah, blah. I just keep coming back to the truth that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Who freaking gives a shit? It doesn't matter. You said what you said. Who cares? You know? And I just, at the end of the day, wanted to experiment and to try and to learn and to grow and to continue to grow. And I'm not going to, I don't foresee myself stopping. I really enjoy making this content and to explore. I don't know how or what it will turn into, but I think there's something valuable to be shared for all of us of our life experience. So maybe even if it just is to inspire you to be like, hey, you have something of value to share. You have a life experience that you have lived on planet Earth that is worth, you know, sharing your experience on, like what it was like. And what I've learned and what I'm still finding my footing in is like, I don't have to go into the state of consciousness that I was in to share an experience and what I gleaned from it. And that's been a kind of like a self-respecting thing and a more easeful way to go about it, because I don't have to like totally take on the consciousness that I was at a moment in time where I was like in a severely abusive relationship, for example, or all of that, because I have learned so much and can separate myself enough from it to kind of be like the objective I as much as I can. I mean, it's not totally objective, but I can have enough experience from it to be able to look at it from several different ways, not just from like a victim lens, for example, or the persecuting lens, or all the different ways that you can tell a story, basically. And I've refound this like faith in myself on my ability to articulate and to share a story and to write scripts and to explore different ways to enter into a video or to exit out of a video, you know, like the little things. And it's kind of brought me to this like this formative time. I remember I was like in elementary school where it was like my, how do I articulate this? It was very a formative time because we're learning how to write papers at this point. And, you know, you're learning your transition words and your starting paragraph phrases and sentences and how you know, ways that you can speak. And I remember taking it so seriously, and it was such an emotional journey and moment. I remember like one day in class, it was just like I just wanted to get it right. Like I had to communicate right or else. And that probably ties into some deeper trauma of probably articulating myself and being a public speaker or some speaker of some time and being, you know, didn't get it just right and was persecuted, or whatever myriad of ways that the persecution of the fallen beings has happened in however many lifetimes I've lived on this planet. I mean, my God. Yeah, it feels like a beautiful chapter is still playing itself out. It's like probably several chapters of my life that I have left, but I feel like it's like the last, if not one of the last embodiments. The reason why I don't say it with such certainty, because it's a big deal to actually ascend, because you're leaving Earth behind, you know. And I've had visions, you know, and connections with the Ascended Master Saint Germain, and feeling like a part of his like fellowship of beings that are here to help him bring in the golden age on planet Earth. And I feel very inspired and connected to that. And so whatever that is, if to serve all of life the most. I'm still so young, it's so hard to tell, but I feel really connected to the vision of bringing about a golden age, but probably because I've probably done it before. There's a lot of resonance there. There's a lot of resonance with the Ascended Master Jesus and Mother Mary and Saint Germain and a few others, and it just feels like this deep, loving, universal collective of beings that I'm a part of. And it's just so relieving when I think back on my childhood and how alone I felt, especially as a teenager. I felt so alone. I felt so different. I felt so like I was such a deep thinker and feeler, to the point where it was like I felt almost numb because nothing around me reflected what was going on internally. It felt like it, even though I know this world is a reflection of the internal state, or I can conceptually understand that. It's different to experience that understanding, but I just felt like, what the freak is going on? Why are people, like, things just didn't feel resonant. And I was always like seeking to fill the void of emptiness in other people. Like, the closest I would ever find would be like through love relationships. And so I would really hang on tight to and project upon like this being could ever love me as much as the love that I feel when I'm connected to my spiritual self and my spiritual family. Like, there's just nothing that you can compare. But a girl tried. Let me tell you, I tried. And I'll probably end up going more into my experience of like how my experience with relationships and what that was like for my psychology and growing up, and just really putting men on a pedestal to save me, probably because I was programmed with Disney and watched Little Mermaid. And when you rewatch these like Disney movies, you're like, oh my God, what the fuck were we thinking? What were we conditioning women to think? It's just like, well, we weren't. There was a elite of people that were programming women, specifically to keep this dynamic at play, like this prince on the white horse, this damsel in distress, that all my problems will be solved if the man chose me. And it's just like, no, it never, ever, ever works out like that. And I feel like I'm still in this process of like these layers and layers of letting go of that, and how deep that programming was for me. And I made a very cringy reel on Instagram where the title was something to the effect of like, women still unraveling the historical impact of the patriarchy in 2026. And it was me just like yelling at the camera of like ranting of the different thoughts that I've had of, are these classical traits that women have that we've associated with women, like conniving, jealousy, anxious attachment, envy, competitiveness with other women? These are so unnatural, first of all, and it's from generations, millenniums, not millennia, millenniums of being treated as an appendage to men, and being treated as like to serve their purpose, right? Their dreams, their goals, their aspirations. And I'm very well aware that I've not only been a woman in all of my lifetimes. I'm not that ignorant, okay? I'm very well aware that I'm a universal, sexless being. I'm a spiritual being, right? With feminine and masculine energies. And as I go higher and higher in my consciousness and in my journey of resolving psychology, I feel more and more that way. I feel so disidentified with the labels and the conditions of this world. And so I digress. But when we think about, I've incarnated in this lifetime for a very particular reason. I chose this lifetime to be a woman, to look like this, to have this body, this face, this experience, these life experiences, these parents, all of this for a reason. Okay? And for me to resolve psychology first and foremost, like you don't just frivolously write your life plan. You have your spiritual teachers with you, like your guidance team with you as you do this. And nothing is frivolous. It's for a particular reason. Like, oh, in this lifetime, I didn't really get this. And so I really want to get it this time because I want to ascend. Or I want to, I want to get this off me. Get this illusion off me. Take off another freaking sweater of falsehood. Like, I'm just done wearing this shit that's not true, basically. But going back to the reel that I made, it's like these behaviors were trauma responses and learned strategies that we had to employ in order to ensure that we were going to live. Like the female sex utilized certain traits that are historically, stereotypical of women to get certain needs met to ensure survival. Like if we weren't beautiful, if we weren't manipulative, if we weren't highly dependent and anxious, and cared so much about what men think, we would be thrown in the dungeon. Like, what the fuck do you mean? Like, we would be offed, like thrown off a cliff, like, bye, next girls, come on, next one, get them lined up, and we had a life to protect. We had children to think about. Like, we had to be so calculated, baby. Okay? And so I just laugh about it now because I was talking to a friend a couple months ago, and that's what kind of brought this up. It's just like, what do you mean these classical traits? It's like these are thousands and thousands and thousands of years of learned trauma patterns and responses to trauma. Like, this is a learned behavioral strategy. These are learned strategies for survival. So I just went on a whole tangent. I'm going to stop there. Wow, 24 minutes. How you doing? And we'll do another video. Talk to you soon.